It's been 37 years on the force, and I've seen my share of evil. Drunks with the razors, husband with the fists, thieves with nothing left to lose. But nothing like this. Whitechapel used to be poor, now it's just cursed. The streets have gone quiet, but not with peace, with fear. Every gas lamp feels like it's hiding something. Every alley hums with the memory of screams. We found her just before the dawn. Mary Ann Nichols. Her eyes wide open. Her throat? Well, God help me. That was just the start. Annie, Liz, Catherine, Mary. We gave them names, but he took everything else. And he wrote to us, mocked us, called himself Jack. Said he would never be caught. Said he would keep going. I chased him every night, but I was always too late. Always just one breath behind the devil. Now I'm old. The case is closed, but I still hear her voice in the alley, still see the blood in the fog, and I still wonder, did we ever really have a chance? London. The year is 1888. The air is thick with coal smoke, and the night is cloaked in a fog so dense that it muffles the sound and swallows lamplight whole. In the East End, the streets of Whitechapel lie like veins, narrow, winding, and full of disease, crime, and desperation. It is a place forgotten by the crown, abandoned by the wealthy, and teetering at the edge of collapse. This is where he chose to strike, not in the glittering halls of the rich, but in the slums, where the forgotten lived and died without a question. And into these gas-lit shadows stepped a phantom, one history would come to know by a name soaked in blood and fear: Jack the Ripper. Whitechapel was chaos contained in a brick and stone. Over 80,000 people crammed into poorly built housing, many living 10 to a room. Sanitation was almost non-existent. Sewage flowed in open drains. Alcoholism, prostitution, and violence ruled the nights. Women often turned to the streets for money, not by choice, but survival. They were invincible to society, easy prey for someone who wanted to kill and not be caught. And that's exactly what Jack the Ripper did. In a span of only a few months, he would commit murders so savage, so calculated, that the city would descend into fear, and the legend of the world's most notorious serial killer would be born. The terror began on August 31st, 1888. In the early hours of the morning, the body of Mary Ann Nichols, known to locals as Polly, was found on Bucks Row. Her throat had been slit twice, almost to the point of decapitation. Her abdomen bore deep gashes, exposing internal organs. Yet, her body was carefully positioned, her clothes pulled down in a calculated, almost theatrical way. There was very little blood around the scene, a clue investigators would later realize that the killer knew how to control the blood flow. Mary Ann Nichols was the Ripper's first confirmed victim, but the world didn't know it yet. Only 8 days later, the killer struck again. Annie Chapman, another night worker, was found murdered in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. Her throat had been cut like Polly's, but this time, her abdomen was cut open with surgical precision. Her uterus was missing, removed, and taken by the killer. This wasn't just violence. This was method. The removal of specific organs suggested knowledge of human anatomy. It raised terrifying questions. Was the Ripper a surgeon? A butcher? someone trained to cut but driven by something far darker. The police were overwhelmed. The public was panicking, and Jack was just getting started. Then came the infamous double event on September 30th. 2 women, 2 murders, less than an hour apart. The first was Elizabeth Stride. She was found in Dudfield's yard, her throat fleshly cut, but her body otherwise untouched. Investigators believed the Ripper was interrupted, possibly spooked before he could carry out his full ritual. But he wasn't finished. Just 45 minutes later, Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square, and this time there was no interruption. Her throat was slashed, her face was mutilated, her nose cut off, cheeks slashed open into a grotesque mask. Her left kidney had been removed. The killer moved fast, precise, and without fear of being caught. As the murders escalated, so did the public hysteria. Newspapers fed the frenzy, turning the Ripper into a celebrity of death. But what truly ignited the fear were the letters. Hundreds poured in, claiming to be from the killer. Most were hoaxes, written by cranks or journalists chasing headlines. But 3 stood out. The first, postmarked September 25th, began with the chilling salutation, "Dear Boss." It mocked the police and promised more killings. It was signed for the first time with the name Jack the Ripper. The second, a postcard, boasted of the double event and threatened more blood. The third, the most disturbing, was addressed to George Lusk, head of a local vigilante group. It arrived with a small box containing half a human kidney. The note read, "From hell." The final and the most gruesome murder occurred on November 9th. Mary Jane Kelly was the only victim killed indoors, in the privacy of her room at 13 Miller's Court. What the Ripper did to her cannot be fully described. Her body was completely destroyed, her face peeled off, her torso emptied, organs arranged across the bed. Her heart was missing. The scene was so horrific that hardened police officers were physically sick. For the first time, the Ripper had privacy, and with time on his hands, he unleashed something monstrous. After Mary Jane Kelly, the murders stopped. The Ripper vanished into the fog from which he came, but the city did not rest. Panic turned into obsession. Police interviewed over 2,000 people, investigated more than 300, and identified over 100 suspects. But no arrest was ever made. Who was Jack the Ripper? Dozens of theories exist, some more grounded than others. One suspect, Montague John Druitt, was a barrister and a teacher who committed suicide shortly after the final murder. Some believed guilt drove him to the river. Another was Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and a barber who lived near the crime scenes and was institutionalized for mental illness. In 2014, DNA testing on a shawl allegedly belonging to a victim, Catherine Eddowes, pointed to Kosminski's family line, but the test's legitimacy is still debated. Other suspects include Dr. Francis Dimbleby, a misogynistic American doctor with a history of bizarre behavior, Walter Sickert, an eccentric artist believed by some to have painted cryptic confessions, and even Prince Albert Victor, grandson of Queen Victoria, the center of one of the most far-fetched yet persistent conspiracy theories in the Ripper saga. But none of these suspects were ever proven. None stood trial, and none answered the final question, why? Why did the killings stop? Did the Ripper die? Was he arrested for another crime? Did he flee London? Or did he simply just lose the urge to kill? We'll never know. What we do know is that Jack the Ripper was a ghost, moving through crowded streets, unseen and unstoppable. He didn't just kill women, he exposed the brutality of Victorian society. He turned the spotlight on poverty, on neglect, on the price of looking away from the forgotten. And in doing so, he ensured his place in history, not as a man, but as a myth. To this day, books are written, tours are given, and theories multiply. He's been portrayed in films, novels, and documentaries. Jack the Ripper is more than a name. He's a symbol of fear, of evil, of the unknown. And in the cold alleys of East London, some say his ghost still walks. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay cautious. Until next time on Reaper Files.